everyone, and welcome to this issue of Anti-Life Reviews. I'm your new god, the one and only, the Eternal Micaiah. I'm a little late with this review as my daughter was sick, but that just means you get 2 reviews this week. Good for you. Well, in February, I'm going to celebrate the 30th anniversary of a comic, obviously, and that is Scud, the Disposable Assassin. I recall seeing Scud in Wizard magazine all those years ago, but didn't read it until sometime later. But hey, I'm going to be splitting these reviews up into 6-issue increments, so let's get into the first 6 issues of Scud, the Disposable Assassin. And let's talk about the writers and artists on this. This had 3 writers on it at various times, often working together. The creator, head writer, and artist was Rob Schrab. The man has been ingrained in the modern comedy world for quite some time, working on the Sarah Silverman program, Community, Parks and Rec, Children's Hospital, Workaholics, Mystery Science Theater 3000, and the surprisingly good Modern Creep Show. I watched the first 2 seasons expecting it to get worse, and while it was silly in parts, the show was as solid as the anthology series can be nowadays, which I mentioned I'm a sucker for. The anthology series, that is. Dan Harmon, another man who most of you will know probably more so than Rob. Dan was the creator of the brilliant show Community, co-creator of the juggernaut Rick and Morty, among other things, including getting drunk on stage and calling Chevy Chase. He also used Scud as the prototype for Mr. Misc's Look at Me. Mondi Carter, I can find almost nothing about what I believe to be a man. He has some writing credits, including a book or 2. Beyond that, not much of a presence that I can find in the media world outside of this. Well, moving over to the issues themselves, we come upon the head of Marvin's Mankins, one Mr. Spider God, who will be important later on in the series. He tells a worker of his to get rid of some manner of monster, which I'll be calling Squid Plug henceforth until we get her name later, that has been killing employees. The worker goes to a vending machine to hire a Scud, Disposable Assassin, whom is a robot assassin Heartbreaker series, and Scuds take a job contract, then once accomplished, they explode. That's the gimmick. Scud, our hero, is about to do just that, and we get a battle between Scud and Squidplug, with Scud even killing the creature's eggs, its children. That is until Scud figures out he will explode thanks to a handy sign on his back. So he incapacitates the monster and delivers it to a local hospital. Now he has to get new jobs to keep the thing alive, which keeps him alive. And it's not long till Scud gets a new job from a man named Tony, who's obviously working for the mob, and he wants Scud to kill a man who killed Don Cortez's daughter. But the trick is, the man's in a well-guarded prison. But this isn't a problem with Scud. Well, seemingly. Here we meet Captain Jones, who, like Mr. Spider-God, will be important later in the coming weeks. Actually, today. But Scud makes short work of his job, though he gets blasted through his hand where his controls are kept, so he goes totally insane, declaring himself Jesus, painted a bloody smile on his face, and killing everything in sight. Though this heals after some time, he escapes but meets up with a band of Mad Max-style desert bandits who worship a man by the name of Hank Grit. Well, he joins up with them to re-attack the prison to save their leader. Well, it turns out their leader was one Barry Palapui, the man Scud was hired to kill, and did kill. In the end of the situation, the prison is destroyed, as is the Hank Grit game. Scud escapes to go hang out with Tony, and we see Captain Jones and Mr. Spider-God having had contact. Scud then becomes integrated with Tony, the Dawn, and their ilk, especially in their battles against Voodoo Ben, who turns out to be Benjamin Franklin. And if the name doesn't give it away, has been sending zombies at the made men. Well, wouldn't you know, Scud is pretty good at killing zombies as long as he gets paid. This includes zombie T-Rexes and Raptors, which is fantastic. The boys and Scud find Power Ranger Gundam-style robots, and they use these, after merging into one robot, with a sword, of course, to destroy the remainder of the zombies. The boys then take off for a well-deserved vacation, but Scud stays behind to get more jobs to pay the increasing medical bills. Though it seems like everyone forgot about the big threat, and that is Benjamin Franklin himself, who attacks Scud, even hiring a kind of Scud called a Saul to help him. Well, our Scud loses an arm but manages to kill the Saul with the help of other Sauls that our boy hired. But that's not all going on, as the Squid Plug wakes up and begins wreaking havoc in the hospital, killing other beings that other Scuds brought in, making those Scuds blow up. He then escapes with its limbs and new weapons, ready for revenge. We don't see him much this episode, as the Squid Plug monster spends the remainder of it killing hobos on the rails. Scud then takes up with a group called Comp Kill Serve, in which he is hired by Mayor Burnside, who owes a lot of money to a Nathan Twist, whom is a giraffe with a robot head, and his army of animal Cenobite-type creatures. Scud's new arm isn't quite ready, so he gets a loaner, which is a massive Schwarzenegger-sized human arm, which is the Scud look I recall from years gone by. Our boy is not thrilled that he has to deal with 6 individual monsters, and his boss at Comkill Serve says he's going to send someone to help him. Well, Scud takes out his first opponent, and we learn during the full moon that his human arm is from a man who was cursed with lycanthropy. To end this episode's 6 issues. So let's go ahead and talk about all this madness. I'll go over the writing and story and etc. before I get to the art. The story is more clever than you might expect from the absolute chaos of what's going on. We are given an overreaching arc with lots of little or big pieces that you know are going to come back around. Well, each issue or every 2 issue has a kind of Monster of the Week flavor to keep that action going. Stuff with Mr. Spider-God, and he owns Marvin's Mankins. Is he Marvin Spider-God? I'm not sure if we ever find that out. But he is set up as the big bad, but only appears twice in these 6 issues. Captain Jones, who ran the prisons, got destroyed. He's presented as being in cahoots with the aforementioned Spider-God. We know these two are going to be a thorn in Scud's side, but it's a slow burn, which is interesting. But interwoven in that, we have the stuff with Voodoo Benjamin Franklin. I'm going to gush about that in a moment. But that Hank Gritz game, which was an obvious reference to the fantastic movie The Road Warrior, the best Mad Max movie. I don't care what anyone says. Stuff like that to give Scud something to do in a real hyperkinetic way while the big bads set up their machinations behind the scenes. It feels like if Chris Claremont was on Adderall, and I mean that in a good way. And I'll mention Claremont probably more than once in these reviews. This is clearly young men in Rob and Dan who understand the framework of characterization and storytelling, but still have all this odd pent-up, frantic energy, and it grows in a positive way, especially in the dialogue. First, the dialogue is messy. It tries a little too hard. It's almost eye-rolling in that regard, cringy, as the kids would say. But then it just gets better and better and funnier and funnier. The quipping, the madness, the natural flow of conversation by issue 4 becomes wonderful. Had me chuckling a number of times. I can only give them credence for refining their writing, and it has that Rick and Morty community, etc. kind of comedy you might expect after a few issues of not bad writing by any stretch of the imagination, but they finally found their voice. I'll talk about some of the characters and notable things as far as the writing goes. Scud himself, this is a character that grows a lot into 6 issues and will grow a lot more. It's nice to see he at first is kind of a blank slate who just wants to not self-destruct, but we find out that's a pretty common defect for the Scud Heartbreaker types. As we see and are told, lots of Scuds bring their potential kills into a hospital so they don't die. But unlike the other Scuds we see, our Scud goes off to have wacky adventures. And it's really when his hand is shot through, which does heal, we are told it affects his personality that he begins to open up. Literally going insane for the most part of an issue. Spitting blood in his face and a smile and saying things like, "I'm Jesus with a laser gun and you're all going to hell." It was interesting. But then we learn more about him when he makes friends with Tony. Tony offers to take him out to eat. Says he doesn't think he needs to. When questioned why he needs the money, he goes, "Medical bills." Damn, Scud. Same. We learn he likes Ultraman, which I love Ultraman as well. Do you know Takashi Miike directed 2 episodes of the highly underrated Ultraman Max? Just letting everyone know. Tony also helps Scud become more forceful. We really get a nice slow burn on him developing a personality. I'm excited to see how it is defined further, especially now that he is part werewolf. As far as the comparison to the Mr. Meeseeks and Rick and Morty, which Dan Harmon has said is based on Scud, I kind of disagree. I mean, obviously he's involved in creating both, so far be it for me to dispute him. But we are told and shown Scuds don't want to die, with many Scuds bringing their hits into the hospital so they don't explode, whereas Meeseeks want to die after performing their task. So they're quite the opposite. I mean, I got a similar idea, so I guess it is what it is. One other part I almost forgot that I enjoyed a lot is when the zombie dinosaurs attack, Scud refuses to kill them unless he gets paid. When he does, he gets paid. He ends up setting himself on fire to kill them. He then tells the group all their money was burnt, so they need to pay him again. That made me laugh. There are not a lot of other characters that matter. Tony is a general mafia kind of guy who makes friends with Scud. Voodoo Ben, who is Benjamin Franklin, was a hilarious reveal. I don't know what the point of it being there, sans he brings them back to life with a kite and lightning, but it was funny enough a gag. I don't have any clue what the squid plug thing is. I have read all these issues, but I simply do not recall. So I'm on a journey with you folks. Such an odd design that I'm intrigued, but yeah, this is the Scud show and everyone else is just playing along. There's also this absolutely brilliant thing before every issue where they give us recommended voice actors for each character, and I'll go through some of them. Scud being John Malkovich, the Doctor being one of my favorite actors, Max von Sydow, Tony is Gary Oldman, Captain Jones is Ed Harris, Voodoo Benjamin Franklin is George C. Scott, two mobsters being Norm Macdonald and Tom Sizemore, and of course the two more important with Jane Mansfield's Head being voiced by Anna Nicole Smith, and Jesus Christ being voiced by himself. And I want to gush about issue 4. It was such a fun issue. It perked me. Zombie dinosaurs with Ben Franklin versus gangsters. My God, that was so much fun. I don't recall enjoying a singular comic issue as much as I did with that one in a long time. As far as the art, I feel much the same I did with the writing. It only got better as things went on, but I have some caveats here, and at least one of them is my issue. The first issue, I read it in color. Now that makes it a reprint that they did in color. So I got an experience that was not intended necessarily for reading this comic in the original run, as the color for the first issue gives it a quality and style that isn't present for the remainder of these issues. And frankly, it does hurt the first 3 issues of Scud. So I'm going to say issue 1 looks great. The color palette is well chosen. The panel layouts are odd. There's a frantic nature to it which won't change. But in these bold, bright colors, it really stands out as having that liquid television 90s style to it. This is not in total contrast issue 2 and 3, but that manic drawing doesn't do it any favors in black and white. It comes off as sloppy, busy, almost too much going on. Now, I'm not going to complain too much about that, as issue 4 and beyond are beautiful. Like I said, with the writing, it grows. You can see that growth. So while we had 2 issues, potentially 3, of not bad, but messy art, seem to come together by 4, and it will remain more than consistent and will occasionally dip into great moments as the series goes on. There will be some bad ones though too. This is nostalgia for me in some ways, that 90s roughness, that lack of elegance, but so much heart. No pun intended for the Heartbreaker series of Scuds. Overall, this was really a hoot. This was a fun ride, and it makes me generally excited to read more of this again, as frankly, I have a drinking problem, so my memory is not all it could be. I recall almost none of this. The art and storytelling started out a little rough, but not bad, just rough. And then it got better. It got so much fun. I stand by the 4th issue of this being the funniest issue I've read in modern memory, and at least these first 6 issues I would recommend to anyone. Scud deserves more love. Well, that was the first part of the complete Scud retrospective. Do you folks out there enjoy Community or Rick and Morty? What do you think about the new voice actors Rick and Morty had in the newest season? Let me know down below. I'd like to avoid the Justin Roiland drama if we can, though, so I don't really know much about it, frankly. But please come back, well, next video, we'll be looking at the next 6 issues of Scud, the Disposable Assassin. And don't forget, I'm not only your new god, but the only god that loves you. Thank you, and goodbye.